I had it all. Success, wealth, power. My name, Ryan Anderson, was synonymous with everything people dreamed of. I built my empire from nothing, from one decision to the next. I created something that was mine, and yet, despite all the accolades, the money, and the luxury, something was always missing. A hole inside me that I didn't even realize existed until she called. Megan. 10 years. 10 years since I last saw her. 10 years since I walked away from everything we had. I told myself it was for the better. I told myself I needed to focus on my career, on the company. But now, when I saw her name flash on my phone, I was instantly hit with a wave of guilt. Megan, the woman I had left behind. The mother of my child. I picked up the phone, feeling my hand tremble. Megan, I said, trying to sound casual, but the anxiety in my voice was evident. After everything that happened, I didn't expect her to call me. Ryan, I need your help. Her voice was soft, almost too soft, with an edge I couldn't place. Was it anger? Pain? I couldn't tell, but I knew it was serious. What happened? I asked, my voice shifting, becoming more concerned. Whatever it was, it didn't sound good. I've had an accident, she said. Her voice wobbled slightly. My car broke down on the highway, and I can't get it fixed. I thought maybe you could help. I couldn't reach anyone else. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and coat, walking briskly out of my office. I didn't know what it was about this, why I had to be there. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was just something deeper, something I didn't want to admit. Megan had called, and I couldn't ignore it. Where are you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm near the old bridge, by the creek, she replied, sounding exhausted. My car's broken down, and I can't fix it. I thought, maybe you could help. I ended the call, not waiting for her to say more. I had no plans other than getting to her. I hadn't seen her in years, but here I was, dropping everything to help. I had left her to deal with everything on her own, and now I was coming back into her life, but I had to be there. There was no way I could leave her stranded. The drive felt longer than it was. My mind raced as I thought about Megan, about the past, about everything I had done wrong. I had tried to push it all aside for so many years, telling myself that the career, the money, everything else was more important. But now, all of that felt irrelevant. My life was built on empty promises. When I pulled up to the bridge, I spotted her almost immediately. Megan, she was standing by the side of her car, looking exhausted, but still as beautiful as I remembered. Time had been kinder to her than it had been to me. She was thinner, a little more worn down, but her eyes still carried that same fire, that same strength. I stepped out of the car and made my way toward her, but she didn't move. There was a moment, a fleeting moment, where our eyes locked and everything seemed to stop. I didn't know what to say to her. I didn't know how to explain myself. I had walked away from her without a second thought. And now I was standing here, trying to make it right. But how could I? Megan, I said softly, breaking the silence. She didn't smile. She didn't even seem surprised. Instead, she just looked at me with those same sharp eyes, full of everything I had put her through. You came, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, full of disbelief. I didn't think you would. I couldn't just leave you out here alone, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I'm here now. Megan didn't respond immediately. She just stared at me, probably trying to figure out why I was there. Why now, after all these years? I knew I didn't deserve any explanation from her, but it felt like the right thing to do. I had to help. I stepped closer, but she remained still. Her expression was a mixture of exhaustion and suspicion. I wasn't sure what she was thinking, but I wasn't going to ask her to forgive me. I wasn't going to ask for anything. I can't fix this for you, Megan, I said, my voice low. But I'll help you with whatever you need. She shook her head slightly, letting out a soft sigh. I don't need you to fix anything, she said, her voice strained. You've never been there for me when I needed you, Ryan. Why would you help me now? The words stung more than I expected. They cut deep, and I couldn't blame her. She had every right to be angry. She had every right to feel betrayed. I had done exactly that. I had walked away, and I had left her to carry the burden of raising our son on her own. I know, I said, my voice steady but thick with emotion. I know I've been wrong. I left you, and I can't take that back. I can't undo the damage I caused, but I'm here now. I'll help you, if you'll let me. Megan didn't say anything right away. She looked down at her feet, then back up at me. Her expression softened just a little, but there was still so much pain there. So much distrust. And I couldn't blame her. I don't know what you want from me, Ryan, she said, her voice quiet. You left me. You left Ethan. And now you want to be here. After all these years. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. I'm not asking for you to forgive me, I said, my voice firm. I'm not asking for anything from you. But I want to be a father to Ethan. I want to make up for what I've missed. There was a long silence, and for a moment, I thought she might just walk away, but she didn't. She stayed. I could see the wheels turning in her mind. The internal struggle. She was torn between the woman I had abandoned and the man who was now standing in front of her, asking for a chance. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter than before. You want to be a father? She asked, her eyes locking with mine. Prove it. I spent the next few days in a haze of uncertainty, the guilt from my past actions gnawing at me with every moment. Megan's words replayed in my mind, constantly reminding me of the damage I had done, of how far I had fallen. She had given me a chance, but she hadn't opened the door completely. I was still standing in the hallway, waiting to be let in. I didn't know what I expected when I returned to her life. I had imagined something easier, something less complicated. But that was my mistake. Had thought it would be simple to slide back in, to prove that I had changed, to fix everything with a few well-chosen words. But Megan wasn't going to let me off that easily. And she shouldn't. She had every right to keep me at arm's length. I had walked away from her and Ethan when they needed me the most. I had betrayed her, broken her heart, and built an empire while she struggled to raise our son alone. I had no right to ask for forgiveness. But I also knew that I had to try. For Ethan, for myself. That afternoon, after my last meeting, I drove straight to Megan's apartment. I had texted her earlier, asking if I could stop by to see Ethan. She had agreed, though I could tell from her brief reply that she wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea. I didn't blame her. She still didn't trust me, and honestly, I didn't expect her to. When I arrived, I saw Megan standing at the door, holding Ethan's hand. He looked up at me with those big brown eyes, a mixture of curiosity and caution in his gaze. I had been trying to build a relationship with him, taking him to the park, playing catch in the backyard, helping him with his homework, but it felt like we were always starting from scratch. Each time I thought I was getting closer to him, I felt a little farther away. Hey, Ethan, I said softly, kneeling down to his level. You ready to go grab some ice cream? He hesitated for a moment, looking up at Megan for reassurance. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine for a brief second. There was no warmth in her gaze, but there wasn't any hostility either. She was giving me this one moment, this one chance to prove that I could be the father Ethan deserved. Ethan smiled and nodded. I want chocolate, he said, his voice brightening. Chocolate it is, I replied with a grin. I stood up, ruffling his hair, and we headed out the door together, leaving Megan behind. I could feel her eyes on my back as we left, but I didn't turn around. I wasn't doing this for her approval. I was doing this for Ethan, for the years I had lost and the ones I still had a chance to be a part of. The ice cream shop was just down the street, a small local place with bright colors and a long counter. Ethan was excited, hopping up and down as we walked through the door. I tried to focus on him, trying to make it feel like we were a family, even though the pieces of that family had been scattered for so long. We sat down with our cones, and for a few minutes it felt almost normal. Ethan talked about his friends at school, about the science project he was working on, and about how much he loved his soccer team. It was small talk, but it was enough. For a brief moment, I could see the boy he was becoming, the one I had missed out on, the one I didn't know well enough. Dad, he said suddenly, looking up at me, his eyes wide with curiosity. When can we go to the zoo? I felt a pang in my chest. How many times had he asked me that question before? How many times had I failed to be there? I'll take you to the zoo soon, buddy. I promise, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I meant it. I wasn't going to let him down again. I wasn't going to make promises I couldn't keep. Ethan smiled at me, his face lighting up. "You're the best, Dad." I didn't know what to say to that. I wasn't the best. Not yet, but I was trying. I was doing everything I could to make it right. When we returned to Megan's apartment, Ethan ran ahead, eager to tell her about the ice cream and his plans for the zoo. I followed behind him, but the moment we crossed the threshold, I felt the distance again. Megan was standing by the kitchen, her arms crossed, watching us with a cautious expression. "How was it?" she asked, her tone flat. "It was great," Ethan said excitedly. "Dad said we can go to the zoo." I looked at Megan, but she didn't meet my gaze. She just nodded, her lips pressed together in that way she always did when she was trying to hold back her emotions. There was a part of me that wished she would just let it out, let me see what she was really feeling. But I knew that wasn't going to happen. Not yet. "I'm glad he had fun," she said, her voice cool. I didn't know how to respond to that. I wanted to tell her that I was doing everything I could, that I was trying to be the man I should have been all along. But I didn't have the right words. I didn't have the right to ask for anything from her. All I could do was show up, day after day, and prove that I was serious. "I'll be back tomorrow," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "I'll pick him up again. Maybe we can go to the zoo next weekend, like I promised." Megan didn't respond right away. She just looked at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was skepticism, but I saw a shift in her. She wasn't closing herself off as much as before. She wasn't opening up either, but she was starting to trust me again, just a little. "Okay," she said finally. "Tomorrow then," and with that, I left, my heart a little lighter than before. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was progress. And progress, no matter how small, was all I could ask for right now. The next few days were a blur of quiet anticipation. I kept my distance from Megan, respecting her boundaries, but I spent more time with Ethan. I took him to the park again, to the zoo like I promised, and to his soccer practices. Slowly but surely, I felt like I was becoming the father he needed. But there were still moments when I felt like an outsider in my own family. When I saw Megan watching us from the window, her expression unreadable, I was reminded of how much work I had left to do. I wasn't giving up, though. I couldn't, not this time. Then, one evening, Megan called. "Ryan," she said when I picked up, her voice hesitant. "We need to talk." My heart dropped. I didn't know what she was going to say, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I could feel the weight of her words before she even spoke them. "Okay," I said, my voice tight with anticipation. "What's on your mind?" "I think we need to have a real conversation about Ethan," she said, the words slow and deliberate. "About what comes next." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment where everything could either fall into place or fall apart. "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady, though I could feel my pulse racing. "We'll figure this out together." But little did I know, the conversation that awaited me would change everything. The following days after our conversation at the cafe felt like walking on a tightrope. Every step was calculated, every word was measured. Megan had given me a chance, but I knew that chance was fragile. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a second chance at love. It was a second chance at being a father to Ethan, a role I had neglected for so long. I wasn't going to waste it. I spent my days with Ethan, doing whatever I could to bond with him, to make up for lost time. I took him to the park, to his soccer games, and helped him with his homework. We even spent a few afternoons at the zoo, something he'd been asking about for weeks. Each time he called me Dad, I felt both a rush of warmth and a pang of regret. It was everything I had wanted, but at the same time, it was a constant reminder of how far I had fallen from the man I once thought I was. I could see the difference in Ethan. He was beginning to trust me again, even if just a little, but it was slow. He was cautious, still unsure of whether I was truly here to stay. I couldn't blame him for that. He'd spent years without me, and I had a lot to prove. I wasn't just building a relationship with my son. I was rebuilding my place in his life, in Megan's life. Megan, on the other hand, remained distant. I saw her less frequently. There were days when I'd drop Ethan off, and Megan would be busy with work or distracted by something else. When I did see her, it was always polite, but there was always a wall. I didn't know if she was afraid to let me in, or if she was trying to protect herself from getting hurt again. But I understood. She wasn't going to forgive me overnight. I had walked away once. Why should she believe I wouldn't do it again? But I had to keep trying. One evening, after spending a couple of hours at the park with Ethan, I found myself standing outside Megan's apartment once again. It felt like déjà vu, but this time, there was something different in the air. I had been seeing Ethan regularly, but I hadn't spoken much to Megan. She had been distant, and I had tried to respect that. But now, something in me was telling me I couldn't just wait any longer. I rang the doorbell and waited, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. When Megan opened the door, she looked at me for a moment before stepping aside to let me in. She didn't speak at first, but there was something in her eyes. A flicker of curiosity, maybe even hope. But it was quickly masked by her usual guarded expression. "Ryan," she said, her voice calm, but with an undercurrent of something I couldn't quite place. "What's going on?" "I didn't expect you tonight." I shrugged, my hands in my pockets, trying to hide the nervousness that was creeping up on me. "I just wanted to talk. About Ethan. About us." Megan raised an eyebrow, but she didn't say anything. She led me to the living room, where Ethan was playing with his action figures. The moment I stepped into the room, I couldn't help but feel a sense of disconnect. I wasn't sure if it was the years that had passed, or the walls Megan had built around herself, but it felt like I was an outsider in my own family. "I've been thinking," I began, sitting down across from her. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it was hard. The weight of everything I had done hung heavily on my shoulders. About everything. About the way I've handled things with Ethan. I know I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect you to just forgive me. I'm not asking for that. Megan looked at me, her expression unreadable. I could see her processing my words, weighing them carefully before she spoke. "Ryan, you can't just show up and expect everything to be fine. I've spent years building a life without you. I've raised Ethan on my own. I've done it without you. And now, you're asking for a chance to come back into our lives, into his life. Do you really understand what that means?" I nodded, my throat tight. "I do. I know it's not going to be easy, and I know that I can't fix everything with a few words. But I'm here. I'm not asking for everything to be perfect. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the father Ethan needs. That I can be there for you, even if you don't want me to be." Megan sighed, her gaze drifting away from me, as if the weight of what I was saying was too much to bear. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Ryan. You left. You abandoned us. And I've had to pick up the pieces for years. I've been doing this alone, I know," I said softly. "I know I've failed you. I've failed both of you. But I want to do better. I want to prove that I'm not the man who walked away. I'm here to stay. For Ethan, and for you, if you'll let me." She was silent for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the floor. I could tell she was conflicted. Part of her wanted to believe me, but another part of her, rightfully so, was scared. She had put so much of herself into raising Ethan, and she couldn't afford to let someone back into her life who might hurt her again. I understood that fear, but I wasn't going anywhere. Finally, Megan spoke, her voice soft but firm. "I'm not going to pretend like everything is okay, Ryan. It's not. But, for Ethan, I'll give you a chance. I'll let you spend time with him. I'll let you be part of his life. But I need you to show me that you're serious. No more empty promises. I need action, not words." My heart raced at her words. She was giving me a chance. It wasn't much, but it was everything, and it was all I needed. "I will," I promised, my voice thick with emotion. "I'll show you. I'll prove it." Megan nodded, her eyes softening for a brief moment. "We'll see, Ryan, we'll see." The following weeks were a mix of hope and frustration. I spent more time with Ethan, trying to show him that I was here to stay. I took him to soccer practice, to the park, and even helped him with his schoolwork. I could see him warming up to me, trusting me more with every passing day. But with Megan, it was different. She was still cautious, still distant, still holding on to the hurt from the past. Every time I thought we were making progress, she would pull back, and I couldn't help but feel the walls she had built around herself. I didn't know how to break them down, but I knew I had to. I knew that if I wanted to be part of their lives, I had to prove to Megan, to Ethan, that I wasn't just showing up because it was convenient for me. I had to show them that I was committed, that I wasn't going anywhere. I spent nights thinking about how to make things right. How to convince Megan that I had truly changed. I knew I couldn't rush her. I knew I had to be patient. But I also knew that time was running out. Every day that passed felt like another chance slipping through my fingers. The day I felt like I was making progress was a Saturday. I had spent the morning with Ethan, and we were walking back to Megan's apartment when I noticed something different. Megan was standing in the doorway, watching us. I hadn't expected her to be there, but as I approached, she smiled. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. And for the first time in weeks, I saw something in her eyes, something that wasn't just guarded. She nodded toward Ethan. "How was the park?" she asked. "It was great," I said, smiling back at her. "Ethan beat me in soccer, by the way." Ethan grinned, clearly proud. "Yeah, I'm getting pretty good." Megan laughed, and it felt like a weight had been lifted. I couldn't explain it, but in that moment, I felt like we had taken a small step forward. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Maybe we can do it again next week," Megan said, her eyes meeting mine. "Yeah, I'd like that," I said, my voice steady. "Thanks for letting me spend time with him." She didn't say much more, but as I turned to leave, I felt a flicker of hope. Megan had given me another chance, and maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real. It's strange how the smallest of moments can change everything. It was just another Saturday when I first started to feel the shift, but it felt like a breakthrough in a long and difficult journey. The days since Megan had agreed to let me be part of Ethan's life had been filled with small victories. They weren't grand gestures, but they were the only victories that mattered. Every laugh I shared with Ethan, every moment we spent together, was a reminder of what I'd missed out on. The gap between me and Megan, though, remained wide. She was still hesitant. Every time we spoke, there was a distance, an emotional barrier that she couldn't bring herself to let down completely. And I didn't blame her. I had caused that rift. I had walked away from her. I had left her to raise Ethan alone, and I couldn't expect her to just erase those years of hurt. But I also knew that nothing in my life had ever felt as important as making things right with her and Ethan. I had everything: money, success, status, but none of it mattered. The real treasure I had lost was them. And if I was ever going to feel whole again, I had to repair the damage I had done. I wasn't asking for forgiveness from Megan yet, but I was going to do everything in my power to prove that I was capable of being the man I had promised to be all those years ago. I spent most of the week working, trying to keep my mind occupied with the deals and responsibilities that came with my position at the company. But even in the midst of all the chaos, I couldn't stop thinking about Megan and Ethan. The guilt still clung to me like a heavy weight. I hadn't been there when Ethan needed me. I hadn't been there when Megan needed me. I couldn't undo the past, but I could show up now. That's all I could do. One afternoon, as I was heading out of the office, I got a text from Megan. My heart skipped a beat as I saw her name flash on the screen. It had been a few days since we last spoke, and I wasn't sure what this text would mean. Was she reaching out because of Ethan, or was it something else? "Can you pick Ethan up from school tomorrow?" The text read. "I have to work late." I stared at the message for a few seconds, a sense of both relief and anxiety hitting me at the same time. Megan was asking me to pick Ethan up. It was a simple task, but it was also a huge step forward. It was a sign that she trusted me enough to care for him. But at the same time, I knew that it wasn't enough. I had to prove myself to her. I had to show her that I wasn't just someone she could rely on when it was convenient. I had to be present for Ethan and for her in every way. I quickly typed back, "Of course. I'll be there." The next day, I arrived at Ethan's school early. I couldn't help but feel a little nervous. It wasn't the first time I'd picked him up, but this time felt different. This time, it felt like something was shifting between us. I walked into the school, my eyes scanning the crowd of children and parents. Ethan was standing by the gate, looking around. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Dad," he shouted, running toward me. His enthusiasm made my heart swell with pride and guilt all at once. I knelt down to his level as he reached me, and he threw his arms around my neck, hugging me tightly. It felt so natural, so right. I had missed this. I had missed being the dad he needed. "Hey, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "Ready to head home?" He nodded eagerly. "Yeah. I got an A+ on my math test." "Really?" I said, pretending to be surprised. "That's awesome, Ethan. I'm proud of you, kiddo." We walked to the car together, and I could feel his excitement radiating off of him. For the first time, he didn't feel like I was trying to make up for lost time. It felt like we were just two people enjoying each other's company. When I dropped Ethan off at Megan's apartment that afternoon, I tried to keep things light. I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable or pressured. She was busy, as usual, but when she answered the door, there was a small, genuine smile on her face. It wasn't much, but it was a change. "Thanks for picking him up," Megan said, her voice soft but steady. "He really enjoys spending time with you." "It's no problem," I said. "I'm glad he's doing well in school. He's a smart kid." She nodded, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. There was something in her expression, something that wasn't just polite or guarded. It was something closer to warmth, maybe even hope. But before I could say anything else, she stepped back inside, glancing at Ethan, who was already running off to his room. "Ryan," she said, her voice a little quieter now. I'm not ready for anything yet, but I appreciate that you're trying. I see you're here for him, and that means a lot." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I didn't know what I had hoped for, but hearing that from her, hearing that she was willing to see the effort I was putting in, meant more than I could say. "I'm not going anywhere, Megan," I said softly. "I'll keep proving it. Every day." She nodded, the faintest of smiles appearing on her lips. "We'll see." The next few weeks passed slowly but steadily. Megan allowed me to spend more time with Ethan, but there was still distance between us. I kept trying to prove to both of them that I was serious, that I could be the father Ethan deserved, but I knew that Megan wasn't going to give in easily. She had every reason not to trust me. She had been left to do everything on her own, and I had no right to expect her to open up to me again just because, I said, I had changed. But I couldn't stop trying. One evening, after I had picked Ethan up from a soccer practice, I found myself sitting in the car outside Megan's apartment again. I had become familiar with this routine. Drop Ethan off, sit in the car, think about what I had done wrong, and wonder what I could do better. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was constantly falling short. I wanted to be a better father. I wanted to be a better man, not just for Ethan, but for Megan too. It was during one of these nights that Megan texted me again. "Ryan, can we talk tomorrow?" The message was short, but the implication was clear. She wanted to talk about something important, and I had a feeling it wasn't going to be easy. But I couldn't hesitate. This was the chance I had been waiting for. A chance to move forward. The days dragged on, filled with both hope and frustration. I had a lot of ground to cover with Megan, but the time I spent with Ethan kept me going. Watching him grow, seeing his confidence slowly bloom, and hearing him call me Dad without hesitation filled the emptiness that had been there for so long. It was a reminder of the relationship I had missed out on, but also a chance to make things right. With every passing day, I felt like I was getting closer, though it wasn't without its struggles. Megan, on the other hand, remained an enigma. The distance between us hadn't really changed. She still held me at arm's length, as if afraid that getting too close would expose her to the pain I had caused. I understood that, but it didn't make it any easier. I wanted her to see that I wasn't the man who walked away all those years ago, but each time I thought I made progress. I felt like I was back at square one. I'd hoped that by spending time with Ethan, showing him I could be the father he needed, Megan would start to trust me. But she was still holding back, and I couldn't rush it. She was cautious, and I couldn't blame her. I had failed her. I had failed both of them. All I could do was prove my sincerity through action, through consistency, and hope that, over time, she would begin to see that I wasn't going anywhere. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I found myself standing outside Megan's apartment again, waiting for her to answer the door. It had become a routine of sorts. Drop Ethan off, leave, then come back a few hours later for another conversation that was always slightly awkward but necessary. But tonight felt different. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew I had to keep pushing forward. I couldn't stop now. When Megan opened the door, I saw the usual cautious expression in her eyes. She wasn't giving much away, and I didn't expect her to. But there was something in her demeanor tonight, something softer. Maybe it was just me hoping for a sign, but I felt like there was a shift, however small. "Ryan," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "We need to talk." My heart skipped a beat. I had heard those words before, but this time, there was no defensiveness in her tone. It was quiet, almost accepting. I wasn't sure what she wanted to talk about, but I felt a growing sense of urgency to hear her out. "I'm listening," I said, trying to sound calm, but the tension in my chest was palpable. We sat down at the kitchen table, the soft hum of the city outside our window filling the silence between us. Ethan was in his room, already preparing for bed. I couldn't help but feel like I was wasting precious time, but I had to wait. Megan was still figuring out how to let me in, and I had to respect that. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice steady. "About you. About what you said. About being a father to Ethan. And honestly, I don't know if I can trust you. You left us. You walked away without a second thought. I don't know how I'm supposed to just forget that." I didn't interrupt her. She needed to say this, needed to express what had been on her mind. She had every right to. I had given her no reason to trust me. I had walked away, and that betrayal was something I couldn't erase with a few good deeds. "I know," I said quietly, my throat tight. "I know I can't undo the past, Megan. I can't fix what I've done. But I want to prove to you that I've changed. That I'm not the man who left you, the man who abandoned you and Ethan." She looked at me for a long time, as if weighing my words carefully. There was no rush, no need to force anything. I could see her processing it all, trying to decide if I was truly sincere, if I was capable of being the man I claimed to be. The man she needed me to be. "I can't just trust you again, Ryan," she said finally, her voice quieter now. "But I can see that you're trying. I can see that you want to be there for Ethan. And that means something. It's a start." I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I'll prove it. I'll prove it every day. I'm here, Megan. I'm not going anywhere." Her eyes softened, just a little. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a step. And for the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we were on the same page. She wasn't shutting me out anymore. She was letting me in, even if it was only a crack. "I'm not asking you to forgive me right now," I continued, my voice low but earnest. "I know I don't deserve that. But I'll show you, day by day, that I'm serious. I'll show you that I'm here for Ethan, and for you, if you'll let me." She didn't say anything for a moment, her gaze fixed on me. Then, she gave a slight nod, her expression still cautious, but not as cold. "We'll see, Ryan. We'll see if you're really here to stay." The following weeks were filled with small moments of progress. I spent more time with Ethan, and I kept my distance from Megan, respecting the boundaries she had set. She was still unsure, but the tension between us had lessened. I could tell she was starting to trust me, at least a little. She was still protective of Ethan, and rightly so. But the walls she had built around her were slowly starting to crack. One day, I took Ethan to his first football game. It was a small league game, nothing too serious, but to Ethan, it was everything. He was so excited, bouncing in his seat the entire time, talking my ear off about the players and their positions. I watched him, so full of life and energy, and it hit me hard. I had missed all of this. The small moments, the victories. I had missed so much of his life, and the guilt threatened to consume me. But I couldn't focus on that. I had to focus on what I could do now, on what I could do for him moving forward. Later that evening, when I dropped Ethan off at Megan's apartment, I noticed something different. She was standing by the door, waiting for him to come in. She smiled, but it wasn't just a polite smile. It was a real smile, one that reached her eyes. It wasn't much, but it was enough for me to feel that, maybe, things were starting to change. "Thanks for spending time with him today," Megan said. Her voice soft, her gaze warm for the first time in a long while. "No problem," I said, trying to keep the emotions in check. "I love spending time with him. He's a great kid. Megan nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. I can see you're trying, Ryan. And I appreciate that. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do see that you're here for him. And for that, I'll give you credit. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A real start. I wasn't sure when it happened whether it was the first time I dropped Ethan off and Megan had smiled just a little longer than usual, or the moment I realized I didn't need to ask for permission to spend time with my son. It was gradual, like the first rays of sunlight breaking through an overcast sky. But I could feel it, a shift, a chance. Maybe not a full-blown forgiveness, but something closer to it. It was the kind of feeling that told me I was moving in the right direction. Over the past few weeks, I had done my best to be consistent. With Ethan, I'd shown up for every soccer practice, every school event, and all the little things in between. I could see him warming up to me, trusting me again, but I knew this was just the beginning. I had a lot of work to do to prove that I was here to stay. With Megan, the moments had been more fleeting. She was still careful, still distant. But when I dropped by with Ethan, or when we shared brief conversations, I could see that she wasn't as quick to turn away from me anymore. She was still holding back, yes, but she wasn't closing the door in my face either. The smallest shift, a slight nod, a brief touch when we talked about Ethan, told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't naive enough to think everything was fine. I knew better. Megan had been through too much. She had raised Ethan alone. She had carried the weight of my mistakes and her own for so long. I wasn't going to fix it all overnight, but I was willing to keep trying. One evening, after another long day at the office, I found myself standing in front of Megan's apartment again. I hadn't planned on coming, but something inside me told me I needed to. It wasn't just for Ethan. It was for Megan too. I had been waiting for a sign, some indication that she was ready to talk, ready to open up. I rang the doorbell, my heart thumping against my chest. When she opened the door, I could see her face soften just slightly. She had been working late, I could tell by the way she looked at me, but there was something different in her gaze. It wasn't just politeness anymore. It was ... acknowledgement. "Ryan," she said, her voice cautious, but not cold. "What's going on?" I have stopped myself. I had rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times, but now that I was here, words failed me. I didn't want to mess this up. I didn't want to rush her. I just wanted to be there. I had to show her, not with empty words, but with actions, that I could be part of their lives again. I wanted to talk. "About Ethan," I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt. "And about us." She stepped aside, gesturing for me to come in. The familiar scent of her apartment hit me the moment I walked inside. It was the same, but different. There were pictures on the walls of Ethan, of the two of them, and something stirred inside me. It was clear to me now. Megan hadn't just moved on with Ethan's life. She had built something strong, something that didn't need me. And yet, she had given me a sliver of space, just enough to prove myself. "I'm listening," she said. Sitting down on the couch across from me, I sat down carefully, not wanting to make this feel too formal, but aware that I needed to be sincere. "I know I've made a lot of mistakes," I started, my voice quiet but full of conviction. "And I know you don't owe me anything. But I want to be here for Ethan. I want to be a father to him, and I want to prove to you that I can be someone you can rely on. You and Ethan ... You deserve more than what I've given you. I can't undo the past, but I'm trying to build a future. For him, for you, and for myself." Megan was silent for a moment, her eyes never leaving mine. I wasn't sure what she was thinking. Was she ready to let me back in? Was she even considering it? Or was this just a fleeting moment of softness that would disappear as soon as I left? "I'm not asking for forgiveness," I continued, my voice thickening with emotion. "I'm asking for a chance to show you that I can do better, that I can be there for both of you." She didn't speak right away. She just looked at me, her gaze heavy with so many unspoken words. Then, finally, she nodded. "I can't promise anything, Ryan," she said softly. "I can't forget what you did. I can't just trust you like that. But I'm willing to see. I'll give you a chance. But it's not just about you. It's about Ethan, too. And if you're serious, if you really want to be a father to him, then I'll allow it. Slowly, But you have to show me. I sat there, the weight of her words settling over me. I wasn't getting everything I wanted, but I was getting a chance. And that was more than I could have hoped for. I nodded, my throat tight. I won't let you down. I'll show you. I promise. She looked at me for a long time, and in that moment, I felt like she was really seeing me for the first time in years. Not the man I was when I left, but the man I was trying to become. And that was all I could ask for. Over the next few weeks, things began to change, little by little. I spent more time with Ethan, and I saw the connection between us growing. There were still moments of hesitation, still that part of me that felt like an outsider, but it was getting easier. Ethan began calling me Dad more frequently. He was still cautious, still unsure, but there was a sense of trust building between us. As for Megan, she wasn't as cold as before. There were moments when she would smile at me, when she would catch my eye and nod, almost as if she was starting to see the man I wanted to be. I didn't expect her to forgive me or to let me back in fully right away, but those little moments, those glimpses of softness were enough. Enough for me to keep going, to keep showing up, to keep proving that I was serious about this. One evening, after spending time with Ethan at a local arcade, I walked him back to Megan's apartment, trying to savor the fleeting moments of fatherhood I had missed out on for so long. When we got there, Megan was standing by the door, waiting for us. She greeted Ethan with a kiss on the forehead and then turned to me. "Ryan," she said quietly, her tone still careful. "Thank you for being here." For Ethan, for me, it wasn't much, but it meant everything. It was the first time she had acknowledged that I wasn't just going through the motions. I was showing up, and I wasn't going anywhere. "I'm here to stay," I said softly, meeting her gaze. Megan nodded, her expression unreadable but softer than it had been. "We'll see, Ryan, we'll see." And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just about proving myself to her anymore. It was about showing Ethan, showing both of them, that I could be the man I should have been. I wasn't asking for forgiveness. I was asking for a chance to build something real. And with every small step, I was getting closer.